There's a different point when Ben is talking to Bruce Chapman at the Discovery Institute. And he's talking to Chapman, and he asks Chapman about whether or not it is part of the agenda of the Discovery Institute to try to use intelligent design to get religion into the classroom again. And Bruce Chapman, goes on to say, no, that really is not the case. And that's pretty much allowed to stand as it is in the film. Are you acquainted with the Wedge document?
I'm familiar.
Why does this movie not mention the Wedge? Well, tell me, what is the Wedge document? And then explain why there's no reference to it in the film.
We know the Wedge document is a document that was released on the Internet, that was an internal document at the Discovery Institute.
An internal document from Philip Johnson, one of the founders of the Discovery Institute?
It's been a long time.
Do you recall what the gist of the Wedge document was?
Yeah, vaguely. It's like I said, it's been quite a while. That the idea was first you have to use this as a wedge to crack open this issue in science, and so that we can get the broader culture to recognize a different reality that's being presented than what is being presented.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no expert on the Wedge document.
Sure, that's right. Although the reason I bring it up is that, of course, the Wedge document is one of the most commonly cited pieces of evidence to suggest that the intelligent design movement and the Discovery Institute in particular are certainly one of the primary exponents of intelligent design, that it really does have an agenda of trying to use this as a way of getting God back into and religion back into the classroom. So I'm just curious that, again, there's no hint that Bruce Chapman's reply on that might have been less than forthcoming in the film. And again, I guess the question is, do you really think it's appropriate in this film not to have hinted that maybe they have more of an agenda than that statement suggests?
I would tell you this, as a person who comes to this debate, who had some ideas about what is really going on when it comes to the origins of life, not any super strong and certainly not super informed opinions. But the thing that has come out to me is that I see very strong evidence of a person's personal philosophy on life's origins, scientists' personal philosophies, heavily influencing how they view the evidence in this debate. And I think it happens on a what I'll call a materialist side, a academic, a scientific establishment side, and I think it happens on the side of people who look at the evidence and see the possibility or the evidence of design. I see philosophical baggage and motivations in full play on both sides of this debate.
So with that in mind, actually, I ask this: what's the Discovery Institute's view of the film? How do they look at this? What kind of feedback have you had from them about this?
I'm not in contact with the Discovery Institute, so I mean I've had very short conversations with a couple of people. I would say I've had more in-depth conversations with people like Richard Dawkins and P.Z. Myers than I've had with the Discovery Institute, so I couldn't attest to that.
Okay. The reason I ask is that certainly it's an interesting thing, and I think it goes to what I would consider to be sort of the muddle of the film's argument in a lot of ways, is that certainly early on when the film first is introducing the Discovery Institute and trying to make the point that it seemingly it's trying to advance the Discovery Institute's quest for inquiry that way. And yet, again, as we said, Bruce Chapman really makes the point that they want to make the argument that ID is not about God. And yet the film itself very, very strongly makes the point basically at every possible turn that ID is more likely than evolution, and I'd like to suggest whatever evolution is, but that ID is more likely, and that intelligent designer really has to be God. That it's really just that it has to be God. That it's ludicrous for it to be aliens somehow or some other kind of non-divine intelligence, and so really, isn't this film kind of doing a disservice to all those people in the ID movement who've been working for years to try to convince us that it really is science and not religion after all?
I would say that you are correct. You're probably correct. I don't know because I can't get in the heads of the people who run the Discovery Institute. That the very clear line that's drawn in the film that says that there are implications for this, okay, that are theological in nature. They're unavoidable. It's got to make them squirm. They've got to be very uncomfortable by this, I would think.
See, the thing that bothers me is that, and this is a thing the film states a number of different times, that there's I forget who it is who actually sort of says this, that there's a point that's trying to make that's equating things in this way, of making the argument that both a position of evolution or one of intelligent design, that they both have implications, and therefore they both need to be equally treated, and that goes to the point of the problem of what's wrong. Am I getting that wrong?
Well, no, I don't know if I would frame it that way.
Okay.
I don't know that that's a fair way to frame it. I think that there are implications on both sides of this, clearly. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you fall down on one side that says that I don't see design, I see a material process bringing life forward, mm-hmm. Then the very clear extension of that is an atheistic view, okay? And not only atheistic, but I don't know, to a degree you would think if it's all material, then ultimately it's, I'm wondering about this whole alien thing, but not to confuse it. So then you move on this side, and if you see design, then most likely for most people, that designer is God, right? For some people, it's not. For some people, they sit back and they say, I don't know what it is. All I know is that I intuitively look at nature and I can't believe that there is no design or no driving force behind it. What that force is, I don't know. I think if a big chunk of the population falls into that camp, they won't overtly say God. They won't overtly say a specific God. They just say that there is a force that has to be in play here. Well, that would fall on the side of intelligent design.
I guess, this is, I think it's an interesting question because a lot of what you're talking about, the metaphysical underpinnings or the larger philosophical framework for this, that really, I think it's safe to say that fundamentally that is what the film is really finding fault with in a lot of ways. It's very much set up one of having a worldview that allows you to accept God as part of that worldview, or versus one that's set up as a worldview that doesn't allow you to have God. I think, and the argument is that evolution, Darwinian biology, and all the rest, that somehow that is very squarely set inside that materialist worldview you mentioned, and that one that the implication, it's not even just an implication, it's explicitly stated it a number of times. The idea is that if you accept that, it eventually, ineluctably, it pulls you over to the no God allowed side of things. So I guess
I think that case is made pretty strongly by P.Z. Myers, Richard Dawkins.
Sure, they definitely make that argument. That's actually not what I was.
Will Provine.
Yeah, that's right.
I did have a question about that. Why not also include comments from somebody like Ken Miller, who's famously religious and an evolutionary biologist?
I would tell you this, and this is keeping in mind who you're talking to. As an associate producer, I don't make decisions about who gets interviewed, and I don't make decisions about if they're interviewed, what makes it in the film.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But I would tell you from a personal standpoint, as somebody who's worked on this project, that Ken Miller would have confused the film unnecessarily. I don't agree with Ken Miller. I think that when you look at this issue in this debate, that really there's one